Hi, I'm Colleen Phelps from WUOL. It's no secret that music making looks a little different in these pandemic times, especially for orchestras. I talked to conductor Teddy Abrams about the Louisville Orchestra's upcoming digital offerings.
Hi, Teddy.
Yeah.
How is planning a season right now different? Because planning a season's like a matter of priorities. You have so many slots to fill. And how are the priorities different during this pandemic time?
Well, obviously uh there are factors that you would never have had to imagine before. And every single orchestra has gone through a different cycle of determining their realities and capabilities. And a lot of the parameters that you just don't have to think about, like the size and space of your hall and the ability for people to congregate backstage or not, your access to things like restrooms that can be controlled during a rehearsal process. These are not usually factors in programming and choosing repertoire, but they very much are in a moment like this. And of course, that is expected to change over the coming months. It does look like there's going to be some kind of gradient of returning to not normal. I don't really like that phrase, but returning to something that looks like programming with full orchestra works. As I said, the parameters are really different by orchestra and by venue. Here in Louisville, we've been extremely fortunate that we basically just picked up and moved ourselves into the old Forester Paris Town Hall, which could not have been better designed for this moment. And it's a fortuitous thing that Louisville built. And I absolutely got involved, probably to people's extreme annoyance, at really insisting that we buy all this technology up front. But it has saved us like you just can't imagine. That hall is set up for an orchestral recording studio, and just by incredible good fortune. So that's determined a lot of our repertoire choices, alongside all the conversations, of course, around equity and inclusivity and things like that that we've thought about for years at the Louisville Orchestra, but maybe haven't been able to articulate as priorities in the way that we've been able to do since the last summer. So um, I could go on and on about what that's meant specifically, but those have been the overall parameters. Safety and health conditions have influenced decision making, just in terms of where the orchestra members sit, how many winds and brass you have, because that determines how many strings that you can have, because they need more space around them. And by the way, the strings have to sit in the back when you have a certain number of winds and brass at our hall, because that's what our health and safety expert told us, which means that if you're doing things where the strings need to play right off the beat and they're an average of 30 to 40 feet away from the conductor, that's a factor too, which you don't think about when you're just programming a normal season.
What would you say is the main thing you've learned in this time?
I think that overall, beyond any specific programming, I have learned that being present in a way that I'm not normally, and especially in the entertainment world, people don't have the opportunity to be present, has let us dream bigger and clarify the things that we really care about as an institution. I know that's kind of a group answer. I'm answering on behalf of the orchestra and myself, but it is combined because kind of we've fused our lives together at this point. but it means that we've been able to take a step back, and instead of just worrying about what comes next, what comes next, what comes next, and living so much in this kind of, I call it an ecstatic state of trying to balance budgets and put on shows, that you end up not actually asking yourself the fundamental questions of what is our purpose here in this community and in this society? What can we do to make it better? And you hope that the work does those things. But in this moment, we've been able to take that much bigger step of saying, here are the priorities that we have as an institution. Here are the ways we're going to influence the city of Louisville. And now let's go and actually proceed with that vision and strategy, not live hand to mouth day to day like most arts organizations do.
Since so much in our world is so emotionally charged right now, it feels like programming takes on that kind of pressure and planning a season and deciding what music you're going to perform. Now, you're performing Ravel's Piano Concerto in G. And when he wrote that piece, Ravel even specifically said, I'm not trying to make some big statement about the world. I just want to write a piano concerto. This is just meant to be entertainment. Can you talk a little bit about bringing just some lightness with that piece right now?
That particular piece is so fascinating because it is a lighter piece of music, yet the facts that make Ravel a genius, his orchestrational capabilities, his ability to very subtly integrate other kinds of music into his own sound world are all on display here. And you have to point out that even though, yes, it does have a light jazzy vibe to it, that second movement is so powerful. And it's fascinating, especially when you look at the tempo marking that Ravel indicates in that second movement. Most people don't really follow it because it's incredibly slow and thoughtful. If you actually play what he recommends, which is probably a good 20 to 30% slower than most people go, because people say, it's kind of like a cafe vibe. I'll take it faster. It feels better. If you really take the time to play each of those left-hand notes the way that he's indicated, it is a meditative sound world. It's almost, I think, inspired by his interest in Eastern music as much as the overall piece is inspired by American jazz. And it's one of the things I love most about the piece, that it's not trying to take on the end of the world. It's not trying to deal with pandemics and inequality and systemic oppression. No, it's not. But it is a piece that reflects the best of what music can be. That Ravel came to America, heard American jazz, which is our diverse, equitable kind of music that we've made, felt deeply inspired by it, and set about trying to express it in his own way. If that isn't what music is capable of, I don't know what is.
Do you ever feel like Ravel kind of protested too much about that, though? Like saying, oh, it's not really about that. Oh, La Valse is not about the fall of Western civilization. Oh, this is just a piano concerto. Like, yeah, and Moby Dick's just a book about a whale.
I think that a lot of composers don't love the way people say that your piece is about something. I think that they maybe are attracted to the language of music specifically because it you can say it's about something, it's inspired by something, there's a storyline, but when it comes to the actual choices of notes, the little scribbles on the paper that is the real work of these composers, there's no direct correspondence. Chords and melodies and counterpoint don't have direct meaning. We ascribe meaning to them based on how we feel when we listen to it, and it resonates with our own histories and knowledge of what those sounds have meant to us. But we've seen this a lot of times where composers have said, sure, like Copland said, it's great that you hear the Appalachians and feel the spring when you listen to my music, but I chose that phrase Appalachian Spring out of a poem. It's not about the Kentucky mountains there. It's not about any of that stuff. But the fact that you feel that is wonderful. And I think Ravel had a history with that. He was also relatively shy. He was an interesting guy, very unusual character. He was not a forceful kind of domineering style composer, and I think that he would often just shy back from those kind of interpretations.
On that concert, it's paired with what you're calling a musical journey. Can you talk a little bit about what that journey includes?
So the journey is a collaboration with my dear friend Ja'Cory Arthur. who I've worked with now for years and years and years. He was one of the first collaborators that I met here in Louisville. Pretty much it was day one of my job. We met just before I was actually going to conduct my first concert with the orchestra, and we have done so many different things together, from taking a whole bunch of drums and going to the juvenile detention center here and improvising and making up raps with the kids, to performing a rap opera that I wrote for him to star in, where he actually played Muhammad Ali. We've done it. July 4th at the waterfront with 40,000 people forming a mosh pit while he performed his own songs. I mean, just we've been on our own journey together for a long time. And now, of course, that he's a Metro Council person, which is a very big deal. There are not many musicians that are ever elected to public office, much less somebody who is a classical percussionist and a rap artist and a teacher. I felt like we wanted to give our platform to him yet again. And in this case, what he's doing is he's hosting this journey and progression of Black music, which is so much the core of what American music is in all of its forms, whether it's performed by Black or white musicians. So much of it is inspired by Black music. So he's going to trace those origins from the very beginning of gospel singing and West African drumming all the way through to hip hop today, stopping along at jazz and swing and bebop and all the different forms that inspiration has taken. So he's going to be our host for that half, and ultimately perform too.
Musicians are kind of like athletes in that, we have to get ready for a concert. On a concert day, we all kind of have our little routine that we follow. With virtual concerts, how has your concert day routine changed?
I used to go through these obsessive routines and things like that, and that kind of fell by the wayside. Especially in this job as a conductor, you're dealing with a lot of stuff that doesn't have to do directly with the music making around the concert. So you might very well have had to, stop by the donor lounge and say hi to some folks and meet the sponsors of that concert. And, then there a million questions come up right before, oh, by the way, somebody's this and some things that will make it, so you're not in the same headspace as you might be if your job was just to wait and play a Beethoven piano concerto. So this year has made it even weirder, because walking out onto the stage and then conducting a concert and speaking to the audience that's not there, that you can't see, is truly weird. The difference between just a rehearsal and walking out on that stage, and I mean, it's just the fact that we're wearing all black. That's the only difference, practically speaking, and that we can't really stop, or we're not supposed to stop in the middle of the performance version. So it's very weird, I will say. And it's hard to it's hard to find the same sense of energy from the audience. You don't know when you're speaking to them, you don't know if you're being funny or not. Nobody laughs. So the whole thing is different. I'm not sure I love this. I'm not sure. I think it's amazing that we have it, but I would like to see a hybrid in the future. If we're doing performances, I like to actually play for at least a few people to know that the connection is being made. It's kind of like, well, we're sending out that energy. I hope that I hope that they're getting the power down the street. I don't know though. So interesting times.
Some people have in the last year started baking bread or doing more yard work or different pandemic hobbies. What's been your little extra pandemic thing? Have you had a pandemic hobby?
I definitely did the bread thing and the cooking thing, especially over the summer. My brother came to stay with me for the first, I guess, about 6 months of the pandemic before he's a teacher, and he went back to work. But when he was doing the virtual side of things, he was with me. So we did a lot of cooking, and yeah, I still have a 75-pound bag of flour. For some reason, we thought that was the flour was not readily available at that moment, so we ordered it from Costco, and that was the option. And I made my way through it. But no, what's interesting is that, and I recognize this is a real privilege when so many artists have been totally out of work and really suffering. But in my job, because it's an institutional job as much as a artistic job, I have actually been busier in different ways than I've ever been. It hasn't been so much the running around and conducting side, but for that first period of the pandemic, going out, building a vision, selling the vision, and raising the money for the vision, took up more time than I would have spent doing anything else. So in a normal year. So in a weird way, I ended up being busier um, than I would have. And so I know that my own personal story, my pandemic story, doesn't align with a lot of musicians who have not played a single concert, or at least not publicly, for now 12, 13 months. So I recognize that, and that's led to a very different lifestyle than the one I would have expected. But that's kind of been my life. Is I've lived the orchestra, I've breathed the orchestra, and it's a little crazy. But look, here we are playing, and we've gotten ourselves to play and play safely, and that was the only thing I wanted for our musicians and for the community.
So outside of if you need to borrow a cup of flour, you're their guy. If you could send the city of Louisville after the year it's had one message right now, what would it be?
I would say that this is the moment to redefine ourselves, to look at ourselves honestly, the best and worst of what we have to offer, the best of what we have to offer, and the worst of what's happened. We must be honest about that in order to become the city that we can be. And I think that while the challenges that we've gone through are heavy, they weigh heavily on all of us, and they're real. The opportunity for genuine change and to take an evolutionary step is here. And I think that should be articulated through a cultural lens. I think that artists are the people that you want here to help. They're the people that help you look at things very honestly, but they're also the people that help you to dream bigger than you would have otherwise dreamed. And I include myself in that category. I want to be surrounded by artists that help me dream bigger. And I'd like to see Louisville redefine itself from being an artistic city that has great artists and that has great art to becoming an arts city, one where arts define and lead the city. And that's the vision that I'm trying to offer, because I think that those are going to be the steps that will help us genuinely grow and do it in a way that's honest. So we have this opportunity. It's a once in a century opportunity, maybe even less frequent than that. But I'd like to seize it rather than wallow in the real tragedy. I'd like to seize the opportunity while we have it.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up. Thank you so much for telling me a little bit about these concerts as they come up.
From Mozart to Ravel to A Musical Journey with Ja'Cory Arthur, tickets for all of these digital concerts are available right now on the Louisville Orchestra website. Find it at louisvilleorchestra.org.